So I got to install this control panel, and this has got the flow meter and the valves and everything, and the TDS meter, all the switches. And my plan is to install it right here, and I need to cut all this out. And additionally, I had to make a couple of teak trim strips. So cut some teak, ripped it, routed it, varnished it like this to kind of frame the opening. I'll trim it, cut it, and fit it later, but I need to get this thing cut out so I can finish routing all the plumbing and electrical to it. Exactly as I planned and laid it out. Take that. Thank you.
Well, tape's been on there for a year.
Oh man, I've had this tape on here for so long. I'm surprised it's not peel and varnish. I just need to shave the back sides of these strips that I made, the teak strips, the filler pieces. But yeah, that's basically where it's going to be. And then this will be the little round over piece. This is a weird angle, like 7 degrees or whatever the back rest is on the settee. But that's going to be a cute little bit of woodworking to get that in there. So the wood looks really dark right now, the pieces I cut, but for some reason, teak just always tends to oxidize in the way that it just all looks the same. So even all the old touch-ups that I've done around the boat and little filler strips, this should eventually age in and turn this orange color. I wanted a 1/2 inch reveal on the bulkhead side and then a little more on the downside.
Why didn't you miter the end, the corner?
I'm sorry, what? Are you still talking? Remember all those tools I had that burned up in the shed?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
That's why it's not mitered?
Yeah. All right, just pulling some wire out to the Watermaker panel location. I need to drill and tap fittings for the tank connections. I forgot to turn on the vacuum.
It just went in.
Yep.
Oh, one little piece, 2 little pieces.
And the one that fell to the bottom. It's floating.
Floating.
Can you reach it?
Yeah, probably. Go all the way?
Almost all the way. I'm gonna chase it and then back it out. So pretty much got everything mounted up. I haven't quite finished all the connections yet. Obviously, I've still got to run the output water, and up to the panel, the TDS meter needs to be installed in line and wired to the control panel. I've got the push button flush needs to be wired up, as well as the booster pump and this big dog, the high pressure pump. So I got this thing set up to where these come in and out pretty easily. A couple of screws. Get my fingers stab myself in the hand.
Why are you taking it out?
Just to show that it is removable, so I can get these things out with a little bit of wrangling. The hoses are connected right now, but basically it comes out. Yeah, all the canister filters are installed. Freshwater side, the freshwater flush, the bleeders, there's air bleed valves on this thing. There's quite a schematic of pieces and parts that hook this thing together. But the one thing I wanted to talk about was this high pressure pump, and it's got a flange with four holes here, and I'm assuming this is pretty stable and strong, but I went ahead and added a couple of, this head, the actual pump head, is different than the motor, but the pump head has these threaded bosses, so I just cut off some bolts as leveling bolts to kind of take some of the pressure off of the flange here, because it's very front end heavy, so it wants to fall off on the front side. So
it didn't have any bolts here.
No, there was nothing there, but I just took it upon myself to install, and they're metric M8 threads. So I just stuck a couple of long bolts in there and use them as front end legs. And then I've got the 4 bolts that are lagged into that stand that I built.
Trying to hook up the ground wire in the pump motor, and finish wiring the motor.
That's how you have to get into that box?
Only once.
Okay. At least it's not a tight little space you gotta be in. Like back in the lazarette.
Yeah. This is definitely easier than the autopilot. Well, for access wise, I guess.
I think you've been hurting your brain.
Yeah,
Trying to figure it
hurting
out.
my brain, and I've been hurting my back. And I'm down on my knees.
Okay, I got to install the brine discharge overboard, and finding a tiny through-hole fitting is quite a trick, but we just happen to have this weird one that came out of the propane locker. So the propane locker doesn't hold propane anymore. It holds stern anchor rode, and I was planning on upsizing it anyway, so I went ahead and pirated this one out of there, and I'm going to put it in right here to drain overboard. 3/4 inch diameter hole. And I was thinking about putting it there, obviously closer to where the Watermaker panel is for the discharge, but I didn't want it spewing salt brine all over our chain plate, so I moved them down. Our last chain plate, the last aft chain plate, is right here, so I'm going to put it right here. Also didn't want to have a big old bunch of fittings and hoses coming down that occupy, take up some space in a locker that we need for storage, and right now we're really strapped for storage. So I kind of know where I'm supposed to be, based on other through holes that come just below the trail boards and the rub rail. There we go. There's daylight. All right, so here's the overboard discharge hooked up to the little through hole fitting. Well, everything is push to connect, so it's nice and convenient. Making a way to hitch this thing up and drop it down so that I can work on it and land all these wires and the hoses into their respective locations. So I just put one of those straps and screwed a strap on here and put a strap up in here, one of these little 1/4 inch clamp thingies. And now I just need to trim off the excess and make it just so when I drop it down, I have a string I can hold onto it, and if I don't need it anymore, I can untie it and get rid of it. But right now it's a real headache. Put this thing together without some sort of assistance. All right, where I'm at now is making the last of the connections. This is going to be the sampling line that goes to the galley sink and just spits into the sink until we get a good number. And then you flip it over to the tanks and it'll fill tank 1 and 2. All right, so pretty much all the panel connections are done. I just got to finish the tubing to run into the tank and also to the sampling faucet. But I wanted to talk about this. I didn't film anything yesterday, but I was doing all this and landing the wires and hooking up everything. The TDS meter runs off of alternating current, and it's got a little fuse holder, so there's a 3 amp fuse for that. One of the problems I had yesterday is when I was pushing on these terminal connectors, I busted one off. And that's not good. Tried to get a hold of Cruise RO today. I'm going to send him out an email. I left him a voicemail, but I need to get one of these double pole, double throw switches that's on, off, on, either way. I rigged it up and came up with this, and it's a whole bunch of saddle taps. This is actually not recommended. I did a test run of the pump, and the boost pump works, and also the flushing solenoid. I'm really bummed about this. So I found a Blue Sea switch I had. It's a single pole double throw. Does the same thing. Middle position is off.
Why do you have to get a different one?
This one, I don't want to overload these terminals with this. So I'm running the boost pump and the solenoid grounds from here. So all these yellows are all the negative side, and they all go to one terminal, and I don't want to overload them. So that's why. Plus, I like the matching switch, and these have a nice rubberized coating. So when you flip them, you know. That's why we were at West Marine today, and I looked at the double pole, double throw switches. It didn't quite match this one either. So hopefully get a hold of Cruise RO, and they can expedite us out one before we leave freshwater here very soon. This is the AC pump as well as power supply to the TDS meter, and the TDS meter is also hooked up. So flipped on the breakers, tested everything. Last little bit is just pull some hoses, stab the connections. I did mention that we do still have that salt tank hooked up for the electroscan marine sanitation device. Once we get into salt water and get rid of that tank, then I'll finish the final connection, which is our freshwater supply to the flushing system. That's for the freshwater flush every few days after you use it, after you make water. And I think based on our comfortable rate of consumption, I think we'll use water pretty much. We'll probably be making water every 3 to 4 days. So, flush it a little bit after each use, but probably don't have to flush too heavily. Based on some of the Cruise RO videos I was watching with Rich talking about people's typical setups and marine growth inside the membranes and whatnot. So obviously I'm not going to turn this on because we're still in freshwater, and there's no point in overpressurizing the vessels because freshwater pumps a lot easier through the membrane than saltwater does. So we will be commissioning this thing as we get into the bay, San Francisco Bay. Pretty much set up. Everything's plumbed and wired like it's supposed to be. That's where we're at.
It's going perfectly. No issues.
100%. No issues. There never is issues on my projects.
What are all the swear words for then?
I don't swear. This location hopefully won't lead to me shirking my responsibilities and maintaining the filters.
Because that is pretty likely to happen.
Anyway, that's how I do it.
We run it till it breaks. We don't actively repair.
That's why we drive Toyotas.
There's no preventative maintenance. Yeah, we don't do preventative maintenance.
You don't have to change it. Just drive it till it dies. As we put the boat together and get closer to evacuating California. Don't roll your eyes.
We're not evacuating.
But we're coming.
You know what to do. Where do we go from here?